Before we start with the actual talk, I also like to make a quick announcement. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Carsten Tellmann. I studied here and work for GData Advanced Analytics now. And yeah, we are supporting this course since many years actually. And this means every time we have an invited speaker here, we are going to have an additional evening event with some nice dinner and free drinks over at our company. The location address you can see here. The idea behind it is that we want to have some additional space where people have a very cozy atmosphere to discuss about the topics. So if you're interested in talking to Florian after the talk, of course it's possible, but if you have lots of questions, a perfect situation would be to come over and do it with a nice dinner. Also, some of my colleagues will be there. GData itself, it's an antivirus company. If you're interested in talking to the technical people about the stuff they're doing, some will be there. Myself and a few colleagues from the GData Advanced Analytics subsidiary will also be there. We are more focused on service-oriented part, like incident response, pen testing, malware analysis for external clients, stuff like that. So it's a good opportunity if you want to get in touch with the speaker, people from the organizing crew, and of course people working in a broader sense in a AV industrial field. So yeah, I hope some of you will show up later. Maybe the guys have said already the food is really nice. I hope I don't promise too much, but I'm pretty confident in the case. And yeah, so that's enough from my side. Now please give Florian a warm welcome.
Anything on the location, Carsten? Anything on the location? So everyone knows.
If you have further questions, just come to me after the talk and then I can explain it more.
Great. Okay, so thanks for having me here in this very technical audience. So this is you're my test audience basically for this talk, and I hope I don't bore you to death today. The talk is called Tapes from an IT Security Consultant, and this is because I really tell you what, after I left the university and decided to become a consultant outside, so what I experienced. So this is, like Carsten said, who am I? Florian Kohlar. I have done my PhD here in Bochum with all the guys. I said 36 years young. This is why I still feel like I left university yesterday, not too long ago. Maybe because I'm still in the area. And I joined KPMG then in 2003. So before I start my talk, maybe it's good to just tell you what the hell KPMG is, what they usually do very quickly. It's not a marketing slide for KPMG, just that you know what I'm doing. So the ones of you who know KPMG, until a few years back, it was mostly because KPMG is a big audit company. It's one of the big 4 companies who do audit, but there's nothing that I do in my time. So I'm working in the consulting area. So we do a lot of consulting, and one of the consulting things that we do is basically security consulting. I try to avoid the term cybersecurity here, although it's officially called cybersecurity. So if you should spot cyber on some of my slides, please don't throw anything at me. Just, yeah. Button started, bingo. So okay, feel free to play bingo. Yeah, that's good. This is the same. I did it myself in this talk, so feel free. If you win, maybe there's a prize. So yeah, cybersecurity or security consulting is what we do. Last marketing slide, I promise, is we're not that small of a security consulting company. So worldwide, we're actually really #1. I didn't believe it myself, but it seems to be the case. And we are around 120 people distributed over all of Germany, and we consult basically everything from family companies to large industrial companies, banks, everything. So everything that also falls under the new CRITIS law. So there's basically nothing that we don't consult. And by the way, maybe interesting for you, we're hiring. So, and we're also looking for very good students who want to do or want to get some practice in the meantime. So first part, you know nothing, Jon Snow. This is because the main thing that I want to tell you in this talk is that knowledge is the key to everything. And there are two very wise words that I want to start my talk with. Is the one from Bruce Schneier that he said, if you think technology can solve your security problems, then you don't understand the problems and you don't understand the technology. This is true. And I'm going to show you today why this is true and why this is a big problem. And then this is just because I like the sentence, is a fool with a tool is still a fool. Yeah, and I hope when we meet for dinner this afternoon, you understand a bit why I'm not doing any big crypto anymore, why I'm not dealing with cipher suites in this level of detail, why I have a lot of other problems that I need to deal with when I'm consulting some companies. So there are three main challenges when you talk about, yeah, you can make your first cross here. When you talk about implementing IT security, information security, cyber security, however you call it. And this is basically you have to cover people, processes, and technology. And what you do here at the university, and this is a very, very important thing, is the technology part. So you deal a lot with cipher suites, with attacks on web servers, especially in the HackPra. You learn how you can penetrate basically systems with tools, with certain methodologies that you apply. And this is one big cornerstone that you have to deal with. But there's also people and processes. And a lot of other stuff that I'm not going to talk about today that you need to have, like risk management, and you need to align with your business strategy and with your business goals. You need to have responsibility for certain topics, and you need to consider the regulatory environment, which I'm trying to tackle a bit later in this talk. So you may ask, so why is this important? Why can I not just solve things by technology, by applying the latest patches, by trying to avoid attacks like POODLE, like the eval attack, so then I should be pretty secure, right? Because then there is no way for an attacker to come into the system to get important information, to whatever, yeah? Distribute malware. And the thing is that mainly when you consider technology, you have a very simple scenario. You have a server and a client, a standard use case. So you may have an information that is holding, a system that is holding information for you, like a database, like your, I don't know, the HR section in the company is trying to raise your salary, yeah? Then they have to access the system. Or you are a researcher in a company like, I don't know, BASF, so you have to work with chemical formulas, and this is your main area of work, so you have your client and you access some server where you cooperate with your colleagues. So, and then there are already a lot of topics that you have to consider from the technology point of view. So you have to apply patches to the system, because if the system is not patched, then you can attack it, of course. You need to apply hardening. So you need to find vulnerabilities. So like, are there any ports open? Can I scan the system? Yeah, you also have to consider this. Then you have to consider, how does the client communicate with the server? So you have some kind of encryption, yeah? Transport encryption, TLS. And on the client itself, you also have the same topics. You have to consider, is the client patched? So are there any vulnerabilities on this client? Is the client hardened? So like, are USB ports disabled? And then you have not only the communication between the client and the server, but you also have system admins who also have their clients, yeah, and they need to maintain the system. So they are the ones who patch it. They are the ones who, I don't know, update database releases, whatever. They work on this machine. And they work from within the company, or they may work from the internet, so like from home office. This is a model that is becoming increasingly popular, and a lot of companies enable that for their system admins to, I don't know, go or use a VPN tunnel to enter the corporate network and maintain their systems. And then you have things like the vendor support. So you have some applications on the system, and you didn't program these applications yourself. So if there is any trouble, you contact the vendor. And what does the vendor do? Usually the vendor wants to access the system and to see what is happening there and what is going wrong. So you have the vendor in your system, yeah, entering your system over the internet as well. And then you have a lot of other sites around the world who also want to enter the system. So like this is the corporate web page that you can access and where you can find some information about the company, or again, some HR sections all over the world who try to access a central HR database with all the employees of a company. So, and this is very easily how complexity emerges in such a scenario. So it's not about technically ensuring that the small things are working and that this TLS channel is right and that the correct cipher suite is chosen. It's also about, did you consider everything? Did you consider every channel that an adversary may use to enter the system? And then the second level of complexity. So you have a lot of system types. You don't have your one Windows server. Yeah, you have SAP systems, you have databases, Oracle, whatever. You have virtualized environments. So it's not always this one system where you can focus. So the adversary who has the goal of entering your corporate network has a lot of options here to choose from. Then, of course, the topic of cloud. So it's not always everything is in your data center. That's not true anymore. A lot of information is in the cloud. May it be emails, Office 365, may it be any data that is stored in Azure or on Amazon. So there's also some data that needs to be protected in here. And then external stuff. This is also quite important. So, okay, you know who is working for your company, but then think of Snowden. Yeah, you have external suppliers, you have contracts with external vendors, and they also need the same amount of access sometimes. Yeah, they want to access the systems, they need to maintain the systems, they need to operate on the IT that you as a company provide. So, and who knows exactly who is coming in as an external staff? So you have a contract with another company, and you don't know, in most cases, who is working for that company. Yeah, you just have a contract, please patch my systems every 2 weeks. You don't know who the person is who is coming in to do this. So very easily you have some more new technology questions. So how does the staff access, the external staff access to your information systems? Do you give them extra hardware for them that they need to return afterwards? Can they use their own devices to enter the systems to do their work? Then how do you access the cloud services? These are just some examples. Yeah, this is not a complete overview. So do you use single sign-on? Do you use the same account that you use to access your internal systems for cloud services? So then the danger is if you lose this account or this credential, you lose this as well. Do you separate them? Then you have the risk that the user forgets one of the passwords or gets confused or whatever. And then a very important point is everything documented. This is a very, very large pain point, believe me. So do you really know what systems you actually have deployed, what IT you are operating on? So a lot of companies where I was, and we asked them, how many servers do you have and what kind of, so the first question always crashed. So it was, I don't know, a threshold of a few 100% where they were wrong afterwards. So this is a problem. And without going too far ahead in my talk, because this is one of the topics later, I mean, imagine that you have an international company with a lot of sites where this is a problem. So it's not about that you have this one server room and you know what's in there. You have a global company, so you have a lot of IT. Okay, so this is really important. And all of this together is one construct, one company construct. And this is how it should look, right? You can have a data center and everything is in order. You don't know exactly what's in there, but it looks nice. And the real situation often is like this. Yeah, and now you have, as a system admin, the task, okay, the system is not patched all right. So you need to change the cabling for this server. Yeah, you need to plug it to our firewall, which is a new firewall. And the system admin, if it's not documented, have fun, right? So this is a few weeks worth of time for a simple task, which takes 5 minutes if everything is documented. It is really a bad example, but sometimes it looks like this. Yeah, a lot of companies try to make it look like this, and they are successful in their ways, but this is also not a toy example. So this is what you see out there in the wild. Okay, next level of complexity. So who of you has heard of joiner, mover, lever? Okay, so joiner, mover, lever. So this is you have your staff in your company who's working for you, and there are people who come into your company. So you hire them. They are new, so they get certain privileges on IT systems. So you're a new IT admin, so you get the right to, I don't know, access the system as a local admin. And then you have the mover process, which is people change inside the company. So they go to a different department. So you as a system admin for company A switch to a different sub-company to work there as an admin. Yeah? And the problem is, why is this important? Because you have to lose your privileges. Yeah? If everything would go all right, you would lose the privileges that you had before, and you would gain new privileges. And this is also where it often goes wrong. So if people change inside a company and do this a few times round, they are some kind of super admin. So they have access rights for almost all parts of the company where they have been. There's a point where it always goes wrong, always. To have an overview of who was working where and needs which rights when, there's a problem. And then, of course, the lever process, so when people leave the company, you have to revoke their access rights. So not all of the people who leave a company are always friendly and say, I had a good time, thank you, farewell. So some of the people have been fired, are not happy about whatever, the salary, the work life. So this is a risk if you leave their account credentials. So, or you have an employee working now for a competitor, and you still give him access rights to your CRM system, so to your customer relationship management. So he sees what problems you're working on still while he is at the competitor. So if you don't revoke his access rights, then this is a big risk. Then you have a topic like lifecycle management. For the servers, it's basically the same. It's joiner, mover, lever for servers. So you get new hardware, you have to replace hardware, you decommission hardware. And then again, you have to update documentation, because if you don't do that, you have absolutely no overview of what's actually running in your data center and where your critical information is. So it's not about knowing which servers you have. It's for us, as people who are doing security, it's about knowing what to protect, or as an adversary, what to attack. So a system that you don't need anymore, but which you keep on running in your data center, is of course a system that you can attack. Yeah? Because it's definitely not going to be patched, because who's going to pay for that? No one's using this, so it's not patched. But then if it's not decommissioned, it's still reachable from the internet, for example, well, have fun. And it's still in the same network than the systems where your important information is on. So you have to keep that in mind. How do you get new hardware in? So who's controlling that? I mean, a few years back, I don't know who read this in the news, so that the NSA was actively modifying hardware to get information, like Cisco routers. So they placed some components in the hardware so that they would be able to sniff traffic, for example. So this is also, where do you get new hardware that you can trust? So I've been to some companies who had smaller fractions in Asian parts, so like a Shanghai Pirate Bay, and this is when the hardware crashes, and I don't know, hard drive is defect. They go to the MediaMarkt and get a new one. So who ensures that this is really working as it should be? So you have this whole constant motion. Everything is changing. Staff is changing. Hardware is changing. You're using cloud services, and this is even faster. Yeah, a cloud service I can subscribe to today, and I can give back the subscription tomorrow if I don't need it anymore. I mean, this is the idea of cloud. Otherwise, I could build it in my own data center. I want to be quick. I want to be agile. I want to have resources when I need them, and I want to give them back when I don't need them anymore. So everything is in constant motion. Then who's keeping track of all this? And then sadly, if you have to ask this question, the answer is mostly no one. No one is keeping track of all this. And then we didn't talk about the processes yet. Yeah? We talked about simple stuff like what is on the server, how many servers do you have in your data center, who is maintaining them. This is simple. And then you have a lot of tasks. You have to consider tools, you have to consider compliance, yeah? Data protection, so what personal information is there, so asset management, business continuity, so who is going to care about when the systems crash that you can still operate. Yeah? All of these things come on top of this complexity. And this is why size does matter, in IT at least. So let's assume, just for this example, you have an overview of the IT in your local site, and you have some processes in place to keep your IT secure, so to handle this complexity. And you have, I don't know, this set of hardware and processes. Companies change, not only because staff is coming and going and IT hardware is coming and going. A lot of companies do what is called mergers and acquisitions. So I don't know, at the moment, Bayer Monsanto, a big deal that is going to come. So what do you think happens when they decide to merge? They have both their own IT, which may look completely different. They have their processes, they have their people working on these processes. And in most cases, when two big companies merged, well, they found out that they have a lot of people dealing with IT, and the managers are often convinced that this is really a lot of IT people and they don't need half of them. So beside your complex set of everything, IT hardware processes, you get a new set of IT hardware processes. It looks completely different, completely other organizational units that you have to consider. So it may not be that you have, I don't know, one HR department, you may have different HR compartments, you may have different research units, who all have different access rights to their IT, and at the moment where you merge the companies, the IT admin from here needs to work on this hardware, yeah, on these servers, because it's one company in the end. So whoever buys, this is Bayer and this is Monsanto, so you have probably the Monsanto HR guys who are working in their own environment. They need to get access rights here, to work here in this HR environment. Yeah? Everything needs to be merged. And this is also a point which is not going very well in most cases. Yeah, this is not that easy. For you, as an example, EduRoam is a bit like that. So you, as a student here in Bochum, you have access to services here at the Ruhr University, so you can access systems which are located here in the data center, but when you go to Australia, for example, you can use the same account to log into, I don't know, the Australian university, if they are connected via EduRoam. Yeah, this is a small example. It's not that they merge, but it's the same problem. You have one identity, and you have access to different things. And the IT in Bochum looks probably very different to the IT in whatever. So, and when you take this set of complex stuff as one of the triangles, I want to give you a real-world example that we found, just to see. This is one of the pictures that we created. It took us a lot of time, so a few months' time, for the company to find out who was working with whom, which the organizational units were there. So each of these triangles is basically one set of what I just showed you. Yeah, with different processes, different IT, different staff. Sometimes, of course, staff is accessing here, and they're all somehow interconnected. So then probably at this time, you realize that choosing the correct cipher suite is not your main problem. Yeah, because you have to find out what this mess is all about, and what you need to protect in this mess, and how you can protect something in this mess. So this is the problem, the complexity of everything in large companies. So next, motorboard or steamship. So let's assume now that you have an overview of the IT globally. So you have this picture and you know what information is located where, and you have processes in place to keep this IT secure. And let's have a look at an attack first. So This is at the top half. I will show you how an attacker performs. Very high level, of course. And then at the bottom is basically the view from the company. So an attack works like this. The attacker invades. So he has a certain phase orientation where he basically scans the network, finds some vulnerabilities that he can exploit, and then he starts to attack. And for a certain time, so the attacker is in the network. This is unavoidable. At a certain point of time, the attack is detected. This is usually after the orientation phase when the attack is already running. So you have security monitoring in place, and your SOC CM team says, oh, there is something suspicious, or a user tells you, oh, on my laptop there is something very slow, or there's something suspicious, or there was a file download, or whatever. So you have a certain time where the attack is detected. You need some time to react now. So you have forensics guys coming in, trying to find out what is the damage, how did the attacker come in, and then somehow the attack ends. Yeah? So let's transfer this to patch management. Very, very nice example. So when a patch, what is a patch? A patch is basically a software update to remediate an exploit that is known. So anyone here in the audience heard Thomas Dulin's talk at RUSEC? I don't know, Carsten, you did. But very interesting talk, definitely worth to look at it on YouTube. So you have a point in time where a bug is known from a company's point of view, and most often also from the attacker's point of view, if the attacker is not even the one who found this bug, who found this exploit. Yeah? So the attacker needs some time to create an exploit, and from the company point of view, you need some time to create a patch to fix this one. But usually the attacker is much faster in creating the exploit than the vendor of the software is requiring to create a patch. Yeah? So once the attacker has created the exploit, there are no processes that the attacker needs to, the attacker doesn't need to ask for, can I now start? He just does it, right? So in the company, it's a bit different. So he just attacks. Then there is a patch available. So and latest at this time, even if the attacker didn't know of this vulnerability before, at the time where a patch is available, then everyone knows, okay, there is something that I can exploit if the system is not patched. Yeah? So maybe the attacker knew it before, otherwise he knows it when a patch is available, that there is something wrong. And at least when this patch is known, the attacker can go and become active. Yeah? And the company, well, the patch is available, needs some time to apply this patch. It's not that you take a productive system where your business is running on and just patch it. So in a company, there's a high risk that this patch is destroying something, that the system is not working anymore as intended. So you need to test this. So you have a test environment which resembles a bit your production environment. So you apply this patch, test for some time if nothing is happening, and then you apply this patch in your real production system. So this takes time. It's not that there's a patch and tomorrow you have your systems patched. There's a patch and it takes, I don't know, let's say 2 weeks time before you can patch your production systems. And in all this time, the attacker is free to use this exploit. Yeah? And then when the system is patched, the system is no longer vulnerable, but the question is it already too late? In most cases, it is. Yeah? So it is also what you have to keep in mind. If you have a working patch management, a professional patch management, you're always vulnerable because you need to test everything. You are slower. You are the motorboat, so you can't just turn around. Everything takes time. And the attacker is agile. Yeah, like a pirate ship with a small motorboat, much more agile. So you're always vulnerable. Second example, legacy applications. So industrial companies, as I said, they have very old systems in place most of the time. So for example, let's imagine you are a big company, yeah, and you buy a very old company because they have a lot of know-how that you require in your company, and they have what we call legacy systems. A legacy system is a system running on, I don't know, Windows 2000, Windows 3.1, whatever. So something completely unsupported, but your business is relying on it. And in many cases, the software as well is really, really old. And when you're very lucky, then there is a new release. But when you're unlucky, and this is most often the case here, is the vendor doesn't exist anymore. It's also the case. So you have very old software, and I don't know, the information security manager comes in and says, we need to update the software. This is a high risk. You say, I can't update it. So this is 2 million business depending on it, and there's no new version. So what do you do now? Migration projects? How do you get then this business process, which is making a lot of revenue, on a new system? So you need to, I don't know, get to maybe a new software, yeah? Or even if there's a new release, then you probably have customized it over the last years so much. You did so many adaptations to code that you can't just switch to a new release because the new release doesn't have your modifications. You would all have to build them, to rebuild them on the new system and test them if everything works for a long time and then switch to this new software. Yeah, and if the software cannot be replaced easily, the cost is very high. So I don't know, for one system, at a client where I was, the cost was about $600,000 to replace one system. Yeah, so this is just that you get a number of what this cost can be for replacing such a system. And then you have to convince management to spend $500,000, and they ask, what do I get? And you say, well, it's less risky software. They say, but it's the old one, it's running. Yeah. And then the worst case is no one even knows how the old software works. Yeah, so the people already left, or in some cases the people died already, who knew how the software worked. So even if you want to replace it and management tells you, okay, you get $500,000 replaced with the software, what does the software exactly do? You don't know it. Yeah, you have a form field, you enter some data and there's some magic and you get your output and this is valuable. Yeah, or you have a production process, so the software is doing some things and then your machine spit out, I don't know, screws or whatever, but you don't know what's happening internally. It's also a problem. What do you do then? Yeah. So when it looks like this, let's imagine there is some very important software running here. If you can't copy it from there. What do you do? Okay, next step. You also have the problem that you are a global company, yeah? So you have a global social network. Let's assume for that you have an overview of your IT globally, you know where everything is. You have no legacy applications, everything is all right, and you have processes in place to keep the technology as secure as possible. So you're pretty good, right? Then you didn't expect the users. So, right, you had this road, you got this barrier here, and you said, okay, this is secure because I got the barrier, so no one is going to drive here, right? And then you have the users and say, oh, this barrier, I need to get from here to here. The users will find a way. Life will find a way, right? So staff is always the weakest link, always. So you as an information security guy, you know what you have to look at. When you get an email, you know, this is easy phishing, right? But there are so many attack vectors to get some information out of clients, to get malware distributed. So you can do social engineering and call them. Clients have, in most cases, unrestricted internet access. So they are browsing through the internet, which you can exploit. You can send them evil emails, and always someone will open to get this new iPhone for $10. This is always working, always. Success rate for such awareness campaigns is 30 to 50% sometimes. So this is also what we do, yeah, awareness campaigns. So we send around emails, say you get a new iPhone X, but only the first 10,000, so be quick. Only the first 100, be quick. And a few minutes later, you get the first responses. Yeah, and the message is then, to get this iPhone, we need to enter in a database. So please log in with your credentials so that we can verify that you are really working at the company. Of course they do it. Yeah, or you drop USB sticks, also still working. It's 100 years old, yeah, but still you can deploy some USB sticks with malware in front of a company and someone will want to know what's on this stick. It's always working. Yeah. And then you didn't consider, even if your employee is secured at home and everything is working. So home office, yeah, so he needs to get some company data home. So I need to work on some Excel spreadsheet, on some business calculation, so I just put them on a USB stick, I carry them home, and so my company PC is also pretty slow, and I have Excel on my private PC, so I'm working on my faster PC at home. It's also a problem. How do you secure this? How do you make sure that there is no data leaving your company for employees? Yeah. So, very funny topic. And there are lots of things you can do about this. So you can do awareness campaigns. You can send around phishing emails. You can drop USB sticks, and when they plug it in, you say, thank you for participating in our campaign. Please don't do this the next time around. You can do some client hardening. So what a lot of companies do is they really make this thing here fireproof. So disable USB devices, restrict internet access, to apply some monitoring. But you know what the biggest problem here is? Board members. So the CEO of a company he wants to have a USB stick here because I don't know, whatever. He doesn't like his laptop being restricted. So it's often the high-ups who say, I can't work with this thing. This is not working. Stupid. Give me a new one. And they get it, right? Because you don't want to be fired next day. So this is not working always. You can do some access restrictions. So this is the topic called identity and access management. So again, going back to, if you remember, this joiner mover leaver discussion that we had. So we have to make sure that people only have access to the stuff that they need access to. Yeah? Don't open every information to every employee. And keep this up to date. And then, as we said, perform security monitoring. For example, on web traffic, which is sometimes really complicated. So when you want to, I don't know, let's say you want to do security monitoring for emails. And you are a company, and you have allowed your employees to send private emails. A lot of companies do that. So they say, okay, you may send also private emails from your work account. It's the use case. Then you have a problem, because you're not really allowed to look into that. So you have to look into the email to know if it's private or not, but then you have already looked into the email. It's like Schrödinger's cat, right? How do you know that this is something that you may look at? It's a big problem. So this is really not always as easy as you think. Same is for web traffic. So the Workers' Council, German Betriebsrat, they are really strong in Germany. And there's a lot of arguments always with, okay, so you do performance monitoring. So you really want to see how much the user is browsing. We don't want that. That's a lot of discussions. And even if you have the ability to monitor web traffic, it's not that there is a single point where you can see traffic. So you have communications patterns that look like this. So this is a set of every small block here is an IP address communicating to a different IP address. Just to show you, just a toy example that I've really seen at a client, so how communication patterns look like. So you need to make sense of that. So how do you know if this communication is evil, or this communication is evil, or this communication is evil, and what's happening there? And this is going back then to the transparency. So if someone communicates to an IP address in China, is this your company office in China, or is it not? Is it some small room in Beijing where, I don't know, a tech company sits and tries to hack your company? So if you don't know where you are and which IPs you have, you can't do this kind of analysis. And then you have laws and regulations. And this is the fun part. So again, let's assume that you have an overview globally, blah, 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 and you have your staff is aware, and your IT is kind of secure, and you've done everything that you can, but you're a global player, and you are making business in other countries. Like, I don't know, you have service desks in India because the people in India are more cheap than the people in Germany, so you have a service desk in India, or in Asia, in Malaysia. Malaysia is also very popular. And some of the countries where you operate in, where you do business with, they have strict regulations that may or may not consider you, but you have to check. So to give you 3 examples. So India. India is a very nice example. So there's this Department of Telecommunications, yeah, which is like Dobrindt in Germany, and they have basically made some regulations for internet service providers, ISP. So everyone who wants to communicate over the internet needs to make use of this internet service provider. And the restriction that India has is, for example, that you are restricted to use 40-bit keys. So, as I said, you might have to check if this is considering you or not, but if it considers you, then you have a problem. Yeah? You need to apply for higher key length. Otherwise, 40 bits. I mean, you all know what 40-bit encryption means. Yeah? But for use, same can be done only with the prior approval of the DOT. China. China is also very interesting. Critical companies, and critical is a term that is not very precisely defined. Critical means something that is critical to China, like, I don't know, critical infrastructure in Germany, comparable, but it may also be from the intellectual property point of view. Critical companies must store all data collected in China within the country. So it's not allowed to store this in the US, for example. They need to store this in China. And Beijing wants to be nice and wants to help you, so they want to audit your security, so you have to give them your source code, so they can check if this is secure, right? Yeah. And if this is not enough, they can force companies to decode encrypted data, just to make sure that everything is all right. So there's a problem. So when you do some business in China, you have to keep this in mind. Maybe this is important for you. Or Russia. Russia is also quite interesting. So they have some new surveillance laws with mandatory data retention and governance backdoors for encrypted communications. Yeah, service providers, also internet service providers, are required to consider how to either break unbreakable encryption or include backdoors for the Russian authorities. So it's not as easy. So even if you do everything you can as a security manager, yeah, and you have the processes in place, and your users know everything, and the staff is okay, and you know who is leaving the company and who has which access rights, you have to deal with this shit. Yeah? So what do you do then? And again, come back to my earlier point. So then choosing the correct TLS cipher suite is not your main problem. In this case, sometimes it is, because 40-bit encryption, you have to choose the right one. But this is not what it boils down to at the end of the day. Okay, right on time, 5 o'clock. So what I hope you take home after this talk is that security is more than really just technology, than protocols, than applying stuff. Technology is important and is becoming the sole foundation for every business. Everything runs on some kind of IT. Everything is going to become virtualized. So I was once in a car with an employee, a manager for Atomkraftwerk. Yeah? And he said the only reason why they don't get attacked so often is because they are not digital already. They have analog systems which are not connected to the internet, and this is the only reason why they think they are still secure. But there is a point in the near future where they will be forced to go to the internet, of course, because you have smart metering and everything at home. So it's going to be nice. But at the top of this technology, you have the people who work with this technology, right? And they are the ones who use it, and they are the ones who maintain it. So if they do something wrong, there's no help in technology for that. And then there's the processes that they follow. Yeah? And they are the ones who keep the technology up to date, who keep the technology secure, and in the end, the processes are the ones who minimize your business risks. Yeah? To apply patches, to do this awareness trainings, to revoke access rights. These are processes. This is not technology, this is not people. So the combination of this is what in the end makes your company more secure, that you have all these topics somehow balanced. So implementing security is always about balance. So what is possible and what is manageable, what is appropriate. So you can't heal the world. In most cases, you can't go to every connection, make every connection secure, make every client already completely hardened, completely secure. It's not possible. But then in the end, you can say, okay, I've already lost, I do nothing. So there's a balance. Yeah? You have to decide what can I do and what is something that I must accept. Yeah? So Microsoft, the new method, kind of new methodology by Microsoft is, they call it assume breached. Is when they consult companies and say what they need to do to have a secure, I don't know, Azure cloud, they say always assume that single clients get compromised, that single items in your network get compromised, but make sure that it cannot spread. Yeah. And I hope this is what you take home. Thank you.